Conversations surrounding LGBTQ community within the sphere of C-pop or Chinese entertainment in general has never been easy and has evolved greatly over the past few decades. In this video, there are two particular individuals who had and continues to play a considerable amount of influence in shaping the current state of LGBTQ discourse across Chinese-speaking regions at large. This video essay is a tribute to the legendary one and only Leslie Cheung, Zhang Guorong, and the forever ambitious and constantly innovative queen of C-pop, Jolin Tsai, Tsai Lin. Leslie Cheung was and is one of the most beloved and well-known stars of Hong Kong in history. His enthralling performances on stage as a singer and his indelible on-screen performances in film charmed the hearts of millions across multiple countries in Asia during the height of his career in the 80s and 90s. Aside from his unquestionable talent and charisma as an artist, his unwavering insistence to be unapologetically himself with a queer identity in a much more conservative society than today deserves further examination beyond mere acknowledgement. While Leslie began his career initially as a cantopop singer and was able to achieve commercial success in the 80s, it was incomparable to the stardom and influence that he garnered as an artist in the 90s. A huge part of the surge in his prominence was due to his transition into film. Working alongside renowned filmmaker Wong Kar-wai in Days of Being Wild in 1990, and more specifically, pivotal roles where he inhabits characters that take on a queer identity in one of my favorite films, Farewell My Concubine in 1993, as well as Happy Together in 1997. Leslie has had multiple queer performances on screen throughout his entire film career, but his portrayals in these two particular films still remain as one of the most monumental performances in the history of Chinese cinema. His performance as Tie Yi in Farewell My Concubine was heartbreaking and at times difficult to watch with the unfathomable amounts of grief and betrayal that the character goes through. In Happy Together, we feel his pain and remorse when he finally realizes that he lost the one whom he had taken for granted in his relationship the whole time. Both films propelled Leslie into the international limelight, where he became a highly lauded, beloved, and recognized superstar with numerous accolades won. Happy Together to date is still considered as one of the best queer films ever made. The channel Accented Cinema made a brilliant video essay deep diving into Leslie's impact on Hong Kong's LGBT cinema, which gives a very comprehensive overview of Leslie's film career and influence on the subsequent developments in Hong Kong's film industry over the years. In 1997, Leslie openly declared to the rest of the world his romantic relationship with another man, a friend from childhood, during his second post-retirement concert for his album Red. It was during the same concert where we see him strutting around on stage in red sequin stilettos, fully free in expressing his own sensuality, be it through intimate dance sequences with a male co-performer or his gender non-conforming costumes. Leslie was, in his own ways, a pioneer in questioning heteronormative ideals and socially accepted norms of what it means to be a man, and in doing so, he challenged what the audiences were comfortable seeing on stage. While his coming out was supported by his fans across different regions in Asia, the conformist chokehold of the 90s Hong Kong was not as kind, and he continued to face scrutiny and prejudice for his sexual identity. In his last few years before committing suicide in 2003, Leslie suffered from severe clinical depression, and in his last note before leaping out of his hotel room, the anguish and despair is evident even from the last words of the fallen star. We often hear people say that great actors disappear into their characters and completely embody them. But for Leslie, it seems far more sophisticated than that. Leslie's tragic death presents us with an opportunity to try and understand the perspective of a bisexual man who was adamantly against conforming to society's heteronormative ideals, so much so that he was willing to take his life for it. As we look back on his career and life trajectory, the uncanny similarities between the adversities that he endured in his personal life, mirroring the persecution and stigmatization that his characters experienced on screen, casts an even more aching shadow on his life. Leslie's death was undoubtedly tragic, but his legacy and towering performances remain engraved in the minds of us today, paving the way for subsequent developments and increased number of quality LGBTQ narratives produced in Hong Kong's film industry. When it comes to artists utilizing their platform to advocate for members within the LGBTQ community, there's one name who wields a level of international presence and recognition today like no other in the Chinese entertainment industry. Jolin Tsai is a Taiwanese mandopop singer who has proven herself to be one of the best-selling and most successful artists across the past 20 years of her career. She's known to be one of the most vocal celebrities when it comes to broaching topics that involves socially conscious commentary in her music, including issues that touch on equality and rights for the LGBTQ community. When performing, she frequently collaborates with dancers who are dressed in costumes that defy gender norms on international stages and award shows. This iconic performance on stage for the Hong Kong Mama in 2015 shocked the audience because no other act during the ceremony featured a group of male dancers in heavy makeup, mesh tops, while dancing on stilettos. It definitely caught the attention and distinguished her as a performer, even amongst all the other acts at the award ceremony. On screen through the release of her music, she has been consistently supportive of the LGBTQ community over the span of her career, since her release of Bravo Lover, 爱无赦 in 2007, a song that subtly hints at the right to love for all, Dr. Jolin in 2012, which questions gender roles in her music video, and Fantasy, which is an emboldening pride anthem celebrating the vibrancy and equality within the community, with gay couples featured in the videos themselves. The themes on embracing oneself regardless of one's sexual orientation is followed by tracks Gentle Woman and We're All Different Yet the Same in her album Play in 2014. It was during this time when we see Jolin taking on a bolder and even more unequivocal stance towards LGBTQ rights through the choice of representation in her music videos. Going past the usual dance sequences, weaving a storyline adapted from real-life events in the song We're All Different Yet the Same displays her intentions of showing her music with greater depth and meaning to the lyricism. The video at one point even got banned for featuring a lesbian couple kissing, with herself starring as one of the newlywed. The music video begins with a lady who accompanies a partner to the hospital because her partner got into a car accident. Before the surgeons could proceed with the operation, legally they were required to seek consent from a family member. However, as same-sex marriages are not recognized at the point in time in Taiwan, the lady who was the main protagonist was unable to provide consent on the patient's behalf, despite them being lifelong partners for over 30 years. The lady tried to contact her lover's relatives, but it was too late. At the beginning, the nurse asked the lady what was her relationship with the patient after she said that she was a family relative. At the end of the video, she looked up and disclosed her sexual orientation by finally replying with,
她是我妻子.
But perhaps the track that has managed to etch its place among listeners' minds on the weight of the discussion surrounding the LGBTQ community is 玫瑰少年, which directly translates to Rose Boy. The official English title of the track was named Womanly, released from her latest album, Ugly Beauty, in 2018. This track won the award for Song of the Year at the 30th Golden Melody Awards, which is also the equivalent of the Grammys within the C-pop world. The song, however, was inspired by a deeply harrowing true story of a young boy named Yung-Chih, whose death in 2000 at merely 15 years old garnered widespread attention in Taiwan society at large. Prior to his death, Yung-Chih was bullied at school for displaying effeminate behavior or characteristics in general, where other male classmates would often forcibly pull down his pants to tease and make fun of him during recess. His mother reported the treatments that he received at school, but none of the teachers did anything to help the situation. To avoid being harassed by his peers, he would ask for permission to go to the toilet 5 to 10 minutes before the break times when other students were still in class, so that he wouldn't have to encounter his bullies. On the day of his death, a few minutes after he went to the bathroom, he was found lying in a pool of his own blood, with his mouth and nostrils bleeding profusely even when they were rushing him to the hospital. There has been many controversies over his death in terms of how he died, whether he suffered pre-existing medical conditions that led to him fainting, sustaining severe head injuries, or if he suffered from a heart attack after he slipped, or combinations of the above. But the process of how he died should not divert our attention away from the main focus of the subject matter at hand. the importance and need for the cultivation of inclusive school environments for all kinds of children to learn and grow in. Had he been rid of the anxiety and fear of being bullied by his peers for his sexuality, such a tragedy could have been prevented. Before the release of Womanly in 2018, Jolin played the documentary short film about the boys' incident during her concert while she was on tour in 2015 for the album Play. Her win at the awards ceremony for Womanly goes beyond rewarding the artists and collaborators for their artistic endeavor, but it's also a moment that recognizes the pain, the unjust, and the representation for individuals within the LGBTQ community who have endured in silence, being punished simply for being who they are. This song, along with all other tracks from Jolin's previous albums in support of same-sex love, is symbolic and vital in propelling the salience of inclusivity and empathy towards others amongst the listeners' minds, cementing her presence as a global icon and a powerful ally of the community.
叶永志提醒了我，在任何情况，我都可能成为某种少数，所以我更要用同理心去爱任何我身边的人。这首歌献给他，也献给所有曾经认为自己完全没有机会、没有选择的你。你一定要记得选择你自己，支持你自己。
In comparison to the positive audience receptivity that Jolin received, Leslie was unfortunately situated at a time when his progressive ideas were too early to be embraced by people within his own home. This BBC article documents the difficulties of being publicly queer at a time which happened to coincide with the first local cases of AIDS, perpetuating the stigma and discrimination against the LGBTQ community at the time. Fortunately, the public discourse on LGBTQ topics have become more normalized and accepted among Hong Kongers today, and citizens' attitudes at large have become more supportive of the community. Taiwan was the first in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage in 2019, and while it still remains the only in Asia, it is still an undeniable feat. As a Taiwanese mandopop star who has been vocal about advancing the rights for the LGBTQ community since 2007, the overwhelming positive responses that Jolin's work received over the years should also be attributed to the changes in public's opinion in opening up a conversation surrounding the community that she has helped contribute towards. To be creating art that advocate for a specific social and political purpose with freedom of speech and expression in Taiwan, coinciding with legitimized change within the governmental system, is undoubtedly a considerable achievement. However, it is also, unfortunately, a privilege that not all artists within the Chinese pop music industry get to enjoy. Not to be dismissive towards Taiwan or Hong Kong's music markets, but the climate pertaining to LGBTQ community in mainland China, which is arguably still the biggest C-pop music market across all Chinese-speaking regions in the world, tells a very different story from that of Taiwan or Hong Kong. China's regulations and policies today carry heavy undertones of anti-effeminacy, homophobia, and intolerance of relationships beyond the union of two opposite genders. LGBT-related conversations are banned in China, with greater crackdowns under Xi Jinping's rule to foster a more conservative, conformist China, which apparently view Chinese male celebrities wearing makeup and displaying less traditionally masculine traits as abnormal aesthetics, or with a more derogatory term, 娘炮. Bloomberg's timeline of LGBT rights in the past 2 decades in China unveils an unfavorable outlook for the community, with much more stringent regulations and policies enforced in the recent years as compared to the 2000s, especially towards Chinese entertainment industry and celebrities. With the increase in Chinese governmental efforts towards clamping down on movements related to advancing the rights of the community, the fight for representation and equality seems like an uphill battle that will not be conquered anytime soon. This then begs the question, has the efforts in the past few decades been a waste? And also, where are we headed next? There seems to be no conclusive answer to that question, but at the risk of sounding overly preachy, cultural icons, be it past or present, holds an even more crucial place today, precisely when we're dealing with increasingly regressive natures of governmental policies. At first glance, Leslie Cheung and Jolin Tsai really seem like two artists who have very little in common. They are artists of different times, one who primarily sang in cantopop and the other who primarily sang in mandopop. But when we examine the lives and careers of these two cultural icons, we're presented with an opportunity to understand from two different narratives with the same goal, reminding us of how far we've come and what we were and are still fighting for. Through Leslie's prominent legacy and courageous representation in the face of great homophobic intolerance, we learn to empathize with individuals within the LGBTQ community who are subjected to endure daily occurrences of fear and paranoia from discrimination by others. Jolin, on the other hand, presents us with the perspective of an outspoken ally, unfaltering in terms of her support for the community and using her extensive platform and beautiful bodies of work to bridge conversations and challenge our attitudes towards love and acceptance. Through her continuing legacy, we get to witness and learn the power that people outside of the community can create to empower those within, and how such efforts can potentially offer them some beacon of hope and the courage to fight on, even in the midst of dampened spirits or unfavorable governmental policies. After all, how many more deaths of Leslie Cheung or Yung-Chih do we have to witness before we learn our lesson? If love is the basis of humanity, why can't we all just simply be?